So the question is, does an offshore charter boat actually make any money?
No.
No. Well, listen, we have folks ask us a lot about the business of owning a charter. We are here in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And one thing that I think sets this channel apart, I'd like to think, of course, Professor, is that we tend to be very honest
Yeah.
about finances, about expenses. Sometimes it shocks people because there's people in this world that think you actually do sell bluefin tuna for $100,000 a tuna or $1 million or whatever that dumb video was online that was completely untrue.
I
Right?
wish.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. And so let's just talk about it openly. And we know that this is going to be different for, charter captains all over, the world,
Right.
really. But this is a difficult business, and an offshore charter is even harder, especially if you're not in Florida just going 3 miles out.
Right.
And I'm not saying they have it easy, by the way,
Right.
because I think it's a tough business to get in no matter what. But in our case, or as you move up the Atlantic, where generally they're having to go a pretty good run out to the canyons. And so not easy to turn a profit. We've got other videos out there too that really talk about just the general maintenance expenses of the boat and what have you. But let's just break it down. We will do how many charter trips this year? Now we've grown,
Yeah.
which is great because of you, by the way. We appreciate it. And this is a down year for a lot of charters in the area because the economy is down in general. But we'll do how many offshore trips this year?
Well, I've already run in between 50 and 55.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to have at least 10 more to finish this out. Right now, we've got 7 on the books upcoming. So we'll be, 60, 65, which I'm happy with.
Yeah, our big goal this year was what?
70.
70.
Yeah.
And so it's possible, by the end of the year, it could happen.
Yeah.
Hey,
Trips pop up.
count
all the
on
time.
you, right?
That's right.
So it's possible that we could actually hit our goal there, which is great. So 70 trips. What would you say is like a ton of trips for one of these captains locally?
Well, I mean, the guys used to run 150, 160 trips a year, back in the heyday. And they would do 30 days straight,
It's
when the
amazing.
weather's right. But it's just not that much demand for it in recent years because of the economy, the unstableness of our country.
Yes.
And another thing that plays a big factor here is the fishing. The sharks are so bad that, you can't go out and load the boat on certain times of year with tuna, and just like yesterday we fished. I mean, we could have loaded the boat, got our limit, and been back in early,
Yes.
easily,
Yes.
easily. But you just couldn't do it.
We caught 9 tunas. We brought 9 tunas to the boat. We hooked up with about 30 to 40 tuna
Yeah,
yesterday,
yeah.
right? And so that and we lost a couple $100 in tackle, which is another reason why it's hard to turn a profit. So we'll do about 70 trips this year, which is great. And I think next year, assuming the brand continues to grow and people like you continue to support us, we might actually hit that 100 mark next
hope.
year. It's very possible.
I hope so.
But the weather is a huge part of this too.
Yeah.
I mean, because you've had multiple trips this year that you had to cancel
Yep.
because of weather, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I always try to move them like the day before is going to be pretty. And I don't have a trip that day. I'll try to get them to shuffle, ahead a day or after a day. But it just doesn't always work out with people's schedule, And but that's fishing, It's,
Yeah.
you're planning around, an event that Mother Nature controls. So
Yeah, and so what that basically means is just because you have something on the calendar, you can't count your chickens before they hatch.
no,
There's been weeks that entire weeks were taken away because of weather, because of a hurricane or whatever, like
Yep.
this. And now all of a sudden you're like, wow, it's just lost a ton of revenue for the company.
yeah,
So let's break down how much our expenses are per trip. Then you have a sense for, okay, what's left over on this. So, in terms of expenses, every time we go out, roughly, what are we looking at, Professor?
Well, depending on the price of fuel, it's anywhere from $800 to $1,000 just to leave the dock, and that includes our ice and our bait
Yeah.
and our fuel. Because any given day we'll need 10 bags of ice at least,
Right.
at a minimum.
Right.
And she burns anywhere, depending on where we're fishing, anywhere from 160 gallons to 200 gallons. It all depends on where we are. You know what I mean? Of fuel a day. And
That's actually less than a lot of the
it's
captains.
less than a lot of
I would think a lot of
yachts.
them are probably in that 180 to 240
Yep,
range or
that's
something
right.
like that.
Yep, and there's some single engine boats that only burn like 140, 150 gallons a day. But it's all about finding that happy medium that works.
So that means with the boat, the captain, etc., what they are able to keep is in our case around, let's say, $1,400-$1,500,
Yeah,
right? But now we got to break down. You might say, okay, $1,400-$1,500 a day that you're profiting. That's not
it's
net
not a
profit.
lot.
It's
Yeah,
not even close. I mean, because the reality is, and I'll just I'll spoil it at the end. We we will show a loss this year,
yeah,
right? And the reason why we're going to show a loss is because how much it costs to maintain a boat like this is significant. If you take $1,500 and you multiply, that's the best case scenario. You multiply that by, let's say, that 70 trips, right? Now all of a sudden you're at $105,000, right? And so $105,000, you're like, oh, all right, that's pretty good. Well, if you watch some of our other videos just on maintenance this year alone, all right, like things like changing out the heat exchangers and things like that, like what would you say we have spent just on maintenance this year, Professor?
I mean that one job that we did this winter, the kind of the overhaul was like 30 grand. But then if you think about, we had to get hauled out twice and the trim tabs, and I mean it's an easy, with all the little things that compound, $60,000.
Yeah, so $60,000, and of course, then you add insurance. In our case, that's $8,000 a year. So suddenly you're at $68,000. That's all taking away from your bottom line, right?
Right.
So we went from 105,000. Now take away, that 68. We'll just call it 70,000. There's $35,000 left, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
so you can see
That doesn't even include my
now we
salary.
got to pay this guy,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
is one of those things. You actually took a pay cut coming to and starting this new career.
I did. Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, man, money's not everything. That's one thing I learned a long, long time ago. Money's not everything. It all depends on your quality of life. And I'm living my best life doing this. So
Yeah, yeah.
happy as I can be.
In our sense is, if we stick with this, then if we continue to hopefully deliver you value, if we're real, if we're transparent, we're honest, that the Speechless brand will continue to grow, that you want to be a part of it. We also recognize that we can't just have trips as a revenue stream.
That's
That's
right.
not going to,
Yeah.
that's never going to really make us profitable. I think we're going to spin our wheels like that, which is why sponsorships, YouTube revenue, things like that are going to become an important revenue stream for the business.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to carry the day. The good thing is we're getting more and more brands that are starting to reach out and saying, hey, I'm interested in what you guys are building. You're doing some pretty cool things. And so I think you're going to see more of that in the future from us. That's how we're going to, turn this into a really profitable business. Because people say sometimes when we do these cost videos, Professor, they're like, if you're losing money, why are you doing it? It's like, well, to your point, first of all, we have a vision,
Yep.
we have a dream, and what's cooler than chasing a dream?
Nothing.
I think that's what it's all about.
That's right.
It's like that's the stuff you remember, and it's where you grow from it. It's like the journey. And so we're trying to make Speechless a household name in that saltwater offshore fishing world. All right. And as we do that, we know the opportunities are going to come. As it is, a lot of the people locally, some of the captains, have made comments to you like, wow, you guys seem to be doing great in terms of total number of trips. Like
Yeah.
70 for this year, I think is,
It's good.
yeah.
It's good compared to a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And so we know there's plenty of captains that are going to do more than that, but we don't get referrals um, from the fishing center or Pirates Cove Marina. We're not just given any
Right.
trip that we get comes from you, the community,
That's right.
that is, that's watching this and that's saying, hey, I want to be a part of what they're building over there. And that's the cool thing. As you come out, you are a part of that. Any other thing that comes to mind when we just talk about the expenses of doing this and how it's not easy to turn a profit? Any other just thoughts for those that are watching, or somebody that could be thinking about getting into the business?
Yeah. What worries me the worst, and I would never be able to do any of this without you. I mean, you're such a great partner through it all, but like a catastrophic failure,
Yeah.
there's something that could happen tomorrow, and like you need $80,000 or $100,000, just to continue going for repairs. And
That's like that fear that's always kind of there.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? It's like that would be a
yeah.
huge kick in the midsection.
Yeah, and you gotta be able to do that, because if you can't make the repairs on a timely manner, if you don't have the money to make the repairs, you're losing revenue because you're down. You know what I mean? And that's like one of my biggest fears. That's why I try to make sure, even though it costs money, make sure we do all the preventative maintenance, keep up on things. You know what I mean? So that way you do all you can to avoid those catastrophic failures.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And it's one of those things where we have a long-term vision. We recognized early that we were going to lose money our first 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
This was our second full year of doing this, pretty much, like in terms of chartering and
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
This was our second full year. So I suspect, because it's a long-term investment, that we got another 1 or 2 years ahead of us where we're going to continue to grind, but then suddenly it's going to turn and it's going to be like that snowball that starts to roll down the hill.
Yeah, and I'm hoping in the future too, we're also going to fish more tournaments. I'll grow as a captain. Our mates will grow as, mates, fishermen. We'll all get better, and we'll start winning some money in these tournaments that we might fish in the future.
And that's a total game changer
Yeah.
there. You win one tournament that could be $1 million.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden it's like it changes.
Yeah.
That's business changing, life changing, in terms of going from being deep in the red to being in the black, and
That's right.
and really having a successful organization. We know too that oftentimes what's interesting is offshore charters tend to make less than inshore oftentimes, because their expenses are so much less. They can actually do more trips.
Yeah.
It's not as weather driven, not as weather contingent.
That's right.
Not always the case, but
Yeah.
that's how it works. We've got a big picture here, and hopefully this gives you a sense for what our vision is and how we're going about this. It's a battle, but we're happy to be in it, and we feel very alive. And part of that is because people like you support us, and so we hope that you come out, that you fish with us. You're part of this movement with Speechless. Check us out, speechlesssportfishing.com. We're at Pirates Cove Marina here in Manio, North Carolina. We'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you in person. Until the next time, everyone, stay salty.